Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new podcast. This is the number 16, and today we have another great guest, which is Dan Black from Black+Blum. He's the co-founder of Black+Blum, and their company makes portable lunch boxes and bottles and carafes, which also clean the water from the tube. So it's awesome. It's great. I have them the carafe. And it's super cool because you drink more water, you stay hydrated, and you stay healthier. He was one of my first ideal guests for my podcast. I had this carafe in my hands, and I was thinking, I want to talk to the guy that made it. So yeah, I managed my first very cool dream guest, let's say, and it was super interesting to talk to him and to understand more about the process behind the making of the objects. And I will suggest you to listen to it. And by the way, you've been super cool the last few weeks. You've supported a lot the podcast. You have been following the social media networks, and the followers are growing. We're almost at 200 on Instagram, which I know it's pretty low, but for me personally it's a lot because I've never had so many followers. So yeah, keep doing that. If you like the podcast, go there and press the button follow, smash that button, and press the button likes and follow also on Instagram, on Facebook and LinkedIn, where the pages are The Creative Insider. Yeah, thank you very much, and enjoy the talk with Dan.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hi Dan, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Nice to talk to you.
I'm very glad to talk to you, and I want to tell you something very special about my podcast because you don't know that. But when I was thinking about starting a podcast about creatives, I was thinking, who do I want to talk to? And a few weeks before I started the podcast, I received from my girlfriend a present, this carafe with the coil for the water. And I loved it because it looked nice and make the water taste good, and it make me drink more, which is healthy. So I was thinking I would like to talk to the guy who has to do with creating this product. So I'm so humbled that after just 3 months, I managed to achieve my first dream guest.
Oh, brilliant. Well, very nice to talk to you. I hope I can entertain.
So you can introduce a little bit yourself to the people who don't know you, and tell who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name is Dan Black. I'm the co-founder and lead designer at Black+Blum. We are primarily a design company. We're based in London, and we are now 22 years old. So we design our own products and get them made, and then we sell them all over the world.
Yeah, they're very interesting products because they're basically gear for food, water that you can take with you. And I have, for example, both the carafe you can take with you and both the one that you mostly keep at home because it's a little bigger. But what was your education, Dan? What did you study? How did you? When was the moment in your life where you thought you wanted to do something with design and creativity?
I'll try and go back to the very beginning. So I grew up, my father made all sorts of products. He had a business that made shoes and slippers and bags and toiletries and all sorts of different products for UK retailers like Marks and Spencer. So I kind of grew up around the kitchen table with him bringing around products that he had made. And I had 3 older brothers, so I'm the youngest. And when I finished the end of school, I was going to go and read economics at university, and I had my place, and I was going to take a gap year and have a year out to go traveling, and it was all booked, all confirmed. And my parents sat me down and they said, "Well, what are you going to do after you finish economics? After you graduate?" And I I didn't really have an answer for them. They said, well, what is it you really enjoy doing? So I was very lucky to have enlightened parents, and I did design A level, and that was my favourite subject. And they said, well, why don't you consider a career in design? And it was very last minute, so I ended up ditching the gap year, ditching my place at university, which I'd secured, and did an art foundation. And I went to study at Northumbria University, which is in Newcastle in the north of England. And it's a 4-year course with 2-year sandwich course, so you get to work in industry. And famous graduates include Johnny Ive, ex-head of design at Apple. And I went there, and it was a fantastic course. I did internships. I worked in America for a couple of years. I worked at a company called Frog Design and IDEO, which are kind of well-known design consultancies in the product design world. And after graduating, while we were at university, we always talked among ourselves as students, but it would be fantastic to have our own design consultancy, one where we would design products, but we would want to own ourselves. So along with a friend, I worked for someone for a year, but then pretty much after 1 year, the friend and I started our own company, which was Black+Blum. So the friend was Martin Bloom, who's a great guy. He was 10 years older than me. He's a Swiss guy, and we started a business as a consultancy, designing products for other people. And after year 2, we did a lighting project where some of the ideas we came up with weren't relevant to the actual brief, but we felt they were still good designs, and we had to we made them ourselves. So we literally were assembling them ourselves, getting them made locally, and we went to a trade show and we started selling them. And that's how really the business sort of started. So we stopped doing consultancy work, designing for other people, and we started with a range of 4 lights that we were making ourselves, and it kind of grew from there. So we did the first 4 lights, and then we did a doorstop. We moved into an office in London that had a heavy glass door, and we cut out of wood this little man that it's called James the Doorman, and that's still an iconic design that some people know. We don't sell it anymore or anything, but when we were at a trade show, the story is the show had finished, and I was up the ladder taking down our banner for our stand, and a lady came up and said, "Oh, I really like your doorstops." And I don't think I was I wasn't very polite, but the show had finished, so I took her business card and went home. And I think it's probably 3 days later, I'm washing my jeans and I find her business card. And I didn't recognize the name of the retailer, but it was Target in America, which is one of the largest retailers in America. And they ended up ordering a lot of products. And that kind of gave us a very good sort of step up the ladder to invest in bigger products. And we went from lighting into homewares, and we designed fans, electric fans, and barbecues and candelabras. So we had sort of probably 20 years of doing lots and lots of different products. We did our first lunchbox 10 years ago, and the inspiration for that lunchbox was Martin Bloom, my ex-business partner's wife, was Japanese, and my wife would very kindly send me to work with a piece of Tupperware with the night before's leftovers. It didn't look that great, but it tasted good. Whereas Martin's wife would send him to work with a bento box, this sort of Japanese tradition of beautifully prepared food. And that was our first sort of entry into sort of food on the go. And then we also did a charcoal water bottle, which is, I think, the product you're referring to, which again was Japanese inspired because they use this natural charcoal. And so we were taking sort of inspiration from Japan, where I think there's much more consideration into food and drink on the go, and adapting it to the Western world. So 5-6 years ago, I think it was, I brought my business partner out, and it was a sort of natural, happy ending to the partnership, but the company name stayed the same. And then 2 years ago, we decided to focus purely on food and drink on the go, because sustainably, I'm very conscious of the fact that we make products, and we're definitely not, helping the environment by making products. But I felt that if we could make functional products which help people, encourage people, enable people to live more sustainable lives, at least we're doing some benefit there. And there's lots of other things I can talk about in relation to that. But that was the start of really our journey, which we're now on a very sort of clear, structured path that we want to become, become known for being experts in developing the best premium lunch boxes and water bottles and thermoses and all the accessories that go with them on the market.
Yeah, I think that you hearing the story behind it, it's very logical because myself, I always try to take my lunch from home, or as you said, my girlfriend would pack me the rest of the last night we had, whatever we had for dinner, and you did through your design something that usually it's considered uncool, very cool, because let's say that all the products you're making, they make the whole experience better and could make you interesting to the other people who see you using your product, because we often ask, okay, what is this black coil doing in the water, and the form of the bottle, it's very interesting, and the combination of the materials. I think that the design, it follows exactly what you wanted to do in the beginning, and it's very interesting.
I think it's as a product designer, it's the most exciting thing for a product designer is where you find a category that has not attracted design attention before, because it gives you an opportunity to really break the mold, do something better, and that's what a product designer's primary role is. So you become an instant expert in a category. You research what's already on the market, and when you find an area which hasn't been addressed before, it's very, very exciting. So when we launched our first lunchbox 10 years ago, or 12 years ago, I think maybe it was, we saw that Japan had the art form of bento, but it hadn't been taken up by the West. And so we said, well, at the time, adults were getting waxy plastic food containers, very, very boring. Children got fun lunch boxes, but adults were making do with very substandard food containers, that aren't meant to be taken with you. And so much of food is about how it looks, and you improve. Food tastes better when it looks good. And so we developed a lunchbox which presented the food that it carried and made it a more pleasurable experience. And in the same way with the water bottle. Water bottle in the last 10 years have really accelerated. Everyone now carries their own water with them. They understand the environmental impact of buying single-use plastic, bottled water, which is terrible for the planet, transporting water when in the West, we all have drinkable water, tap water. So we wanted to encourage people to drink their tap water, and that's where we introduced this Vinchatan. It's a Japanese charcoal. This method, it's not the same as barbecue charcoal. It's a much harder charcoal, and it makes your tap water taste delicious. And we felt that if we could develop a water bottle which celebrated this in a very natural way, it would encourage people to drink their tap water.
Yeah, it totally does the job. I can tell you myself, because I'm the one. I won't generally try to be environmental, but I'm also sometimes skeptical, because I think that some of the products are just more marketed as they're really good. But this one was for me extremely good, because I notice I drink more water and I use it more often, and I enjoy using it. But I want to go a little step further because you did an overview of your journey, and the goal is also from the talk to the listeners, to help them maybe understand better what would be the path if they start being a product designer. You said that when you graduated, you started with your friend from Switzerland, and it was started as a consultancy firm, right? So you designed products for other brands. How does that? So you designed so many different objects, and you said that you become an expert of a field. But how do you design, for example, a ventilator or or something else without knowing so do you have to know also an engineering knowledge to know, or for example, I don't know what electrical motor or what cabling and so on you need?
Yeah, so the training of a product designer is to understand manufacturing, form, function, technical things. So a fan is obviously very easy. It's got a motor, it's got an electrical switch, and we employed someone, I think, to help us with the aerodynamics, not aerodynamics, but the airflow aspect of the shape of the propeller blade. But a designer's role is to, when you design a product, and you learn this very quickly as a consultancy, is when someone gives you a brief, you have to research the market. And nowadays, it's obviously very, very easy with the internet. You can literally go online and be aware of what is already on the market. And then you can very quickly go, well, how do I make it better? So that's a designer's role. So we understood how to make things. We understood, injection molding, wire forming, wire pressing, the advantages of plastic sometimes over metal or metal over plastic. So we had that skill, I guess, from university. What the university didn't teach us, and which I'm still learning even today, is sourcing and manufacturing and marketing is such a huge part of whether a product survives or doesn't, whether a product does well or not. People talk about three-legged stools in a business of being successful. So you can have a great design, but if people don't see it, if you don't do a good press release, if you don't do a good good marketing, or you don't have a good sales team, or you don't have a good logistics back in the background, sort of supplying the product to shops or account handling. There's so many aspects to a business now which you have to have in order to get a product to work. It's not just having a great design. There are lots of great designs out there which you never know about, which you never see.
And then, of course, you have design, the marketing, and the production that needs to be sustainable, not only from the environmental point of view, but also from, I think, the costs of the production.
We're going a step further than that. We're trying to actually, it will be later this year, but we're going to start offsetting all our production. So environmentally, our biggest cost to the environment is the fact that we produce new products, and we get made in China with very good factories. We couldn't make them sadly in Europe at a price which would be affordable, or I'm not even sure we could even make them in Europe to some degree, because sadly the manufacturing doesn't exist. But what we can do is offset all the production or the transportation from China. We sell all over the world, so the fact that we make in China doesn't really make transportation of the products is actually a very small. It's about 5% of the carbon footprint. But what we're going further to do is even say we're going to offset the actual production and the shipping of these products, so that when they get to the end customer, we've offset all the carbon footprint for that product in the first place.
But I was wondering, and that's a good. So you're not only the designer, but you're yourself the manufacturer, because I'm an architect personally, and I know more about, for example, furniture production, and I know a lot of firms which are actually the designers, and they sort of outsource the production and then just sell that with their brand. Is that your case, or
no? In our category, we don't own our own factories. We the way it works is we come up with a design brief. So we say we want to design a lunchbox specific for this market, or we say this usage. So say imagine a breakfast, something that's great for taking a breakfast to work. We come up with a design, and then we approach different manufacturers to quote it. Often a part will have different materials. So you have a part from stainless steel, a part from silicon, a part from injection molded plastic, the packaging, and then you have to agree on that manufacturer, and then you commit to tooling, so the product gets tooled. So that's a very big investment. Then you trial production run it to make sure that it's as good as it can be. That normally is 3, 4, 5 months. And then you have to take it to a trade show and market it to retailers to buy. So from start to finish, a standard product is normally 2 to 2.5 years, which is it's a long time before you go from blank piece of paper all the way through to seeing the product in a shop.
And how much of your marketing and your then sailings go through these events where you go with your design, and what part is online, and or that's going hand to hand? How does that work?
Well, it's a complex subject, but we have a website where we sell our products. But our product, we're selling lunchboxes and water bottles. So even though we're premium, your average order value through our website is about sort of £35 to £40. So it's not very high. As a result of that, we can't. If you know PPC, which is pay per click, so we can't spend a lot of money advertising our products online. So that if people look up on Google Lunchbox, we probably don't come up because we're not advertising heavily. So we have to spend our money on marketing so that people don't just go to, say, Amazon and type in lunchbox. They type in Black+Blum lunchbox because they want to buy our product. So we need people to be looking for our brand in order to function. But majority, I think it's only something like 2% of our sales go through our own website, whereas the 98% remaining sales go through retailers. So we sell our products in over 60 countries, and we sell to distributors often. So if you take, say, Germany, which is our biggest market, we have someone there who buys our products directly from us, and then they sell it on to retailers.
And they resell it also online, or
they sell it online, because I think the division between online, some of our customers are only online, like an Amazon, but some of our customers will have a shop and they will also have a website, so they will also sell online. So and most companies now all sell online, as well as if they have a physical bricks and mortar store as well.
Yeah, I think that this I think it's very interesting to hear these stories directly from you, which are involved in the process of producing and then marketing the whole product. So that because the show, it's also about explaining to the listeners how different businesses work and different industries work. But
I think the difference that where we differ from the majority of brands in our category is that we design the products and develop the products from scratch. So the tools belong to us, whereas 90% of the people in our industry will see a product, possibly in China, from a factory, and they will then say, I want it in that color with this logo, with this packaging. So they're not developing the product themselves, whereas we develop the product, uniquely from us, so it belongs to us. There are other companies out there which do it in a slightly different way, and the internet has allowed this, where they do crowdfunding. So if you look at websites like Kickstarter, nowadays you can create a product, a design. You can then go to a website like Kickstarter, and you can say back it, and that money then goes by people into allowing that company to invest in the tooling and the production, and that means that company is selling only to the end consumer. So we call it B2C, business to consumer. Whereas at the moment, and it's changing all the time, but our business is primarily B2B, which is business to business. So the majority of our market is selling to retailers who then sell it on to customers.
But you mentioned also that you're the designers, and then you're not the producer, and then you're working into the development of the design and the product. But you said that your production is also sort of outsourced to this other business, which is the factory. And do you think that because you said that also generally the production currently is only in China mostly, is it that not a problem anyway that if you send your design to China and then they have your knowledge about the design, they will make their clone product, which might maybe eat some of the market of the original.
Sadly, in so many industries, there's so much copying. We often innovate and come up with a product, and then a year or 2 years later, competitors are selling it, selling copies, and we register our designs, and that helps us protect it. But the truth is, you cannot stop people from copying. We did our first lunchbox with a bamboo lid. It's a chopping board, and so many people have copied that concept. We were one of the first companies to do a stainless steel lunchbox, and again, we're seeing a lot more competition there now, where people are sort of copying the elements of the design, features of the design. But the Chinese factories that we work with, they don't. We have to trust them. You enter into a relationship. You might get them to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, before you send them a design. But ultimately, we've built up a very good retail network. So their business is to make products and to sell those products. And as long as we can meet that side of the bargain, where basically we're saying we're going to develop this product with you, but we're going to order good enough volume, it's not in their interest to copy us. It doesn't mean that other factories who can do the same things as them won't copy us, and that does happen. But I think with copying, there's very little you can do unless you go to court. And we've won it. We've had lots and lots of cases where basically someone has copied us, and we've written a letter to say this is a registered design, and we've been able to stop them from doing it. Quite often, you get a lot of retailers in our industry who do what we call own label products. So if you get a big retailer who doesn't sell a brand, but they sell the product under their own brand name, the buyer who buys these products might be offered a copy of one of our products from a Chinese factory, not the same Chinese factory we use, but another Chinese factory. And they then buy that product thinking it's unique to that factory, not realizing that it's a copy of our product. And we then have to go to that retailer and say, you're selling a copy, stop. And we've had lots of cases where we've been successful at stopping them selling those products. Sometimes people actively look for copies, and that's bad, but it happens.
Yeah, well, I guess that the consumers don't do that because they hope to find the same, because often the consumers do not care about the quality and the process behind, but they do care about the end price. So if you find a copy that's cheaper, a lot of the consumers are, let's say, tending to go in that direction. Because, for example, I've had also in the past guests, like in the ceramics field, I had Sarah Katra. She makes handmade ceramics, and we were saying that people sometimes don't know why the price of a product is that high or that low behind it. Because of course, if you spend 2 years of your life to work on a new design, that affects the price. But I think it's not
that, because that's one side of it, but the other side is the fact that you're in the middle. So we buy from a factory, we put our margin on, and then we sell to a shop. If the shop buys directly from the factory, they cut out our margin.
Yeah, of course.
And so that's normally the problem. But it does happen. I think sadly with ceramics, it's very easy. Point of entry in terms of the cost of developing a ceramic is very, very cheap. If I can send them an original, they can take a cast from that ceramic and make an exact copy very, very quickly with no cost. At least with our products, there's a slight barrier to entry, because a typical injection molding or a piece of stainless steel might have a tooling cost of, say, $20,000-$30,000. And then we have to order, say, 10,000 pieces when we place that initial order. So unless you're prepared to commit to that, you can't get that product.
Yeah, but I'm also very interested to go a little bit deeper into your design process. So, how does do your ideas get into design? How do they get live? So, how do you start? I guess you start from sketching some new product, then you make it digital, and I mean, you can tell yourself, I don't know, what is your way of proceeding, because in architecture, of course, it's sketching, then you go on the CAD, and then goes more in detail.
I'm forever sketching. I'm also quite a light sleeper, so I can be awake at night, and I think I have I think everyone's brain is like a muscle, in the sense that if you're an accountant, your brain after 20 years of doing it is very good at sort of analyzing numbers and doing that. If you're a lawyer, you have different skills. As a designer, I can take a product and I can three-dimensionally spin it in my brain very easily, and I can imagine the end concept, very, very easily, without having to even sketch it. But I do sketch just to sort of formalize my ideas. So in the category we're in, we're very much aware of what is on the market. We're always obviously looking and researching or being made aware of new launches. We're aware of our competitors. That's part of the job of a designer, that you're sensitive to what's already on the market. So we work normally about 3 to 4 years in advance. So we have a product pipeline where we know what products, the 20, 30 products which we're launching over the next 2 to 3 years. And the process is you literally start with a sketch, and we do a very, very detailed brief going, who is this product aimed at? What key functions does it have to have? What secondary functions would it be good to have? What price should it be sold at? What price do we need to buy it for? What other considerations are there? And that's kind of the starting point. What is already on the market? What volume size should it be? All those key criteria. And that helps formalize the design that you end up with. It's not, that takes the fun out of it a little bit. Sometimes you get little moments of just amazing inspiration where you go, what happens if we did it like this? And that's the joy. And it's a lovely process where you go from having a sketch to putting it into a computer. We use SolidWorks. There's lots of CAD packages out there, but we use SolidWorks. And we have a 3D printer in the office, which is fantastic. So within the space of 2 weeks, you can go from a sketch to having a physical product in your hand, where you get to understand what it would feel like if you hold it. And, just slight changes in form can make a huge difference. And then once we have the CAD finalized, and that can be sort of a 3-month period. So it's not a long design process, really. We then start getting it quoted and deciding who we're going to make it with. And sometimes products don't make it. Sometimes you have an idea or a concept and you get it to that stage, and you work out that you cannot actually make that design at the price it would need to be to what we think sell. And sometimes that means the product never makes it to market.
Yeah, that's. I was wondering while we're talking, because could it happen also the reverse process, that because I guess that also you said that through this practice you have around 20 years or more practice. Now you have this mind which is calibrated to create these 3D models in your head, which I know because myself, when I draw a building or see just a 2D on the paper, the building, I can imagine it in 3D too. But can it happen that, for example, you see another product or another material or a way of working a certain metal, or a way of working a certain wood, and then when you see this process, you think, okay, maybe I can think through this technique some new product. Is that also happening sometimes, that you go reverse? Basically, you start from a material and you think, out of this material I can make something that I have in my head?
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely when you actually get to visit the manufacturers and you can see sometimes they'll have a little manufacturing technique or a detail that they've done on a different product, or even better when it's in a completely different industry. As I said before, I think designers are very sensitive. So I'm forever kind of looking at products and going, I could take that material or I could take that detail and use it on this other product I'm working on. So I think as designers being sensitive, you've trained your brain to be able to pick up on what the world is showing you and be able to be inspired by so many different things. We have a very big part of our product design process, which I've written a blog about it. We want to create products with soul. And that's it's not unique to us, but when I talk about products with soul, we want to design products which get better with age. And it's very, very hard to do that with plastic and generally with products. If you think about a mobile phone, you love that mobile phone when you first get it. It's brand new, it's shiny. But as soon as the new phone comes out, you kind of look at your old phone that's might be a little bit scratched and you don't have the same appreciation, the love for it. And it's very hard with technology that's continually advancing to do that, to give products with soul. But you take something as simple as, say, a wooden spoon, that you use in your kitchen, that's great for stirring the non-stick pan or whatever it is, or tasting your soup, whatever. And that wood spoon will be better after 50 years of use than it is, when you first buy it, because it's marked and burnt and dented and scratches and has the marks of your hand, or it somehow has a story to it. And we would love with all of our products, and it's not always easy with plastic, as I said, to do it, but certainly with stainless steel, our lunchboxes might take a scratch or a dent or a mark, but they'll get better with time. And it's lovely if we can get that into all our products.
And I think that in your case, the scratch and the mark, it's also a memory, because, for example, if you take your products on a cool journey or in a hike on the mountain with friends, and then you can have some emotional affection to this object, and then eventually, we are all I'm using, for example, design objects of my grandpa, because back in the days there were more companies like yours where the products were more durable, and then sometimes it went even through son to father and from father to grandson. So I think this is also an aspect that could be very different from technology and the kind of products you produce.
Exactly. There's a very much a utilitarian aspect. So we do functional products, everyday products that you can use every day. It's I'm not sure it's commercial, but we shy away from gadgets. Gadgets are products which you think you need but you don't, and you get given it or you buy it and think, oh, that's really clever, and then it goes in a drawer and you never use it, and eventually it'll end up in landfill. Products which you use every day, your go-to products, those are the ones you love. Those are the ones you cherish. You want them to work. You look after them. And those are the products which have the chance of being antiques of the future. So that if you go into an antique shop and you find an old thermos, with a cork top and the glass inner and the chip thing, it will still work. It will still do its job. And it will be better because it's scratched and marked, and it can almost be cool. And I love the category we're in because we have the opportunity of doing that. I think it's very hard with technology to do that, but hopefully there will be a way to do it where you maybe keep the housing. It's not like mobile phones are getting any smaller. They've got to a size where it doesn't make sense for them to get smaller. So maybe there'd be a way to do a mobile phone that has a case, which is your case, and all you're updating is the technology inside.
Yeah, I think that's a good point of view. And actually, the fonts are getting bigger again. And I wanted to ask you, because we talked about your design process, that you have this combination of sketch, of material knowledge, of also digital and 3D printer. But I think that once a design has potential, so you have gone through these early phases where you think, okay, this might be a good idea. Do you build how do you build a prototype before you go in the mass production? So like one piece, that's the real deal, and then you actually see how it feels, how it looks.
It's with a lot of our products, it's impossible to do an accurate production prototype without investing in tooling. You know, a tool, so for an injection molding or a piece of pressed metal, you have to make a physical big block of metal that helps you make the shape. That's part of the production technique, like a casting, and that's the big cost. So there is a risk element. So what we tend to do is make very, very good models, or 3D prints, and we present those to our sales team. We do very good renders, so product images which look real. They're never real. They're two-dimensional images, but they look like real photographs of the product. And we get feedback from our retailers, from key customers, to make sure that before we actually press go on the tooling, we've had some sort of feedback to make sure that it does resonate with them. The biggest process is once we've done the tooling and we've managed to get the product to where we want to be, we do a pilot production run where we will hand the products out to people who've never seen the product before. It might be sort of 300 pieces, it might be more, but we get them to use it, and it's amazing how much you learn even in that stage. And so that can add another sort of 5-6 months where they might say, you've got to change this detail or change that, or improve on that bit. And then finally you press go on the production once you've solved those issues, and then it eventually goes to the shops.
Yeah, because I think that in your case, there is also another aspect, which is probably for me, for example, as a user, I think the weight of an object is an aspect that you have figured out only when you have the real product. And maybe if you said you have these months of tweaking, maybe that's another aspect that you maybe make it lighter with less material or more material, depending on the feeling. But I was wondering, because you said you started from scratch with a friend, your company, and you have designed different objects, and then you moved into this specific field. And during your career so far, during your experience, have you had some, I don't know, also some big failure at some point where you said, okay, this product, it's totally a cool idea, and then you went into production, and then actually you weren't right?
It's probably like a car crash. You try and forget them. Yes, we definitely have. Sometimes it's partly down to timing. So we did a barbecue, which was really fun. It was called the Hot Pot Bbq, and it looked like a big terracotta pot, a traditional terracotta pot. And you could lift the top off to expose your barbecue, and on the top you would grow your herbs, like a herb garden, to season the food that you grilled underneath. And when you've used natural charcoal, you put that charcoal in the barbecue back into the soil. So it was a lovely product. But it was before internet sales. And so it was, sometimes you launch a product, but before the internet, we didn't have the opportunity to explain to people, we didn't have budget for advertising or that kind of thing. And if you can't communicate to a product, people have very short attention spans. And if they go into a shop, or even nowadays, if they go online, if they don't understand that product in the first 3 seconds, you failed, because people won't hang around to understand. Sometimes products have lots of good, clever points, but if you haven't grabbed the attention in the first 3 seconds, then you've lost that opportunity. So it's interesting when you kind of analyze websites like Kickstarter, where people go there knowing that they're going to watch videos where the product's benefits and features are explained. So it's different. I'm trying to think of what other failures we've had. We've had certain products where a competitor's come in and blown us out of the water. So we used to do a fan. It was a desktop fan called Propello, and it was lovely, sort of very retro-looking, sort of 19 almost Art Deco sort of jet engine. It was made from aluminium. And what was different about it compared to other fans was it had no guard. The fan blades were made from rubber, so you could put your finger in without cutting yourself. And that the benefit was that it made it silent. It was easy to clean, and it was just this very minimal-looking fan. It was actually inspired by fans from the 30s or 40s, which had done this, but somehow over the years everyone had accepted that they buy cheap white plastic fans that they bin. And the product was doing, when we launched the product, it did really, really well, and it was selling very well. And then Dyson obviously came in and launched their sort of bladeless fan, where you've just got this big sort of circle. And it, sometimes that happens where your product, it's not to say people would always buy the Dyson, but it made it very difficult for us to sort of, to be in the market. Certain products also are very challenging, like the fan, for example, which are seasonal, because fans only sell when it's hot. And, you might have one summer, less so now, actually, due to global warming, but less so now. But if this was 14 years ago, where you might have 2 summers in a row which weren't that hot in Europe. And that would mean that, you've got all this stock that ties up cash flow, but you weren't actually selling as many fans as you would hoped for.
Yeah, that's another point of it. But you mentioned a couple of times that you didn't have money to spend on advertising, and you don't spend a lot of money on advertising. But that made me think about a few days ago. I've heard about this professor, which is called Jonah Berger, and he wrote a book called Contagious. I think the title is Contagious: Why Things Stick, or something like this. So the book, it's basically about why some ideas or products or people are more, influential or popular. And he was saying that through a research, I think that maybe 20 or 30% maximum from a sale of a company or a product comes through advertising. And 70% comes from people talking about the product. And I wanted to say also to the people who are going to listen to this podcast that I haven't gotten paid to have you on the podcast or to advertise your company. It's just because in your design, there is this invisible power where there is this simple solution which make a bottle better or lunchbox better than the average. And then I think I've talked about the bottle to, I don't know, all of my friends, because I'll be like, oh, my girlfriend gave me this bottle and I'm very cool because I have a smart bottle now. So I think that in your case, the best commercial of your products, it's just the product itself. And maybe, as you said, sometimes understanding a product, it's difficult for someone, and other products are just made better and they're simpler. But I think that's the heart, the good skill of your brand, that the products are their own marketing. But I was curious, how big has grown your team so far in the last 20 years?
We go up and down. So we are now a team of about 15 people. So we're still very small. We have we outsource our warehousing. So we have a warehouse in the UK and a warehouse in the US where we hold stock, but it's not our warehouse. So we don't have any of the people picking and packing our orders who are employed directly by us, because it allows us to grow. So we have 3 designers and a sales team and the finance team. So it's quite a small ship. But we're still a small company, really, in the scale of things. But it was interesting what you're saying about. You got my brain thinking about the word of mouth. If you look on Amazon, so much of it's down to the reviews of product. But companies spend a lot of money getting word of mouth, if that makes sense. So it might not be advertising as such, but they're creating word of mouth. And social media, Instagram, Facebook, it's very much the same thing, isn't it? Because it might not be a friend who recommends a product, but it's someone who you respect who's there going, this is a great product, and people companies spend a fortune on that. It's something that we are not good at. Primarily, we're a design company, and I think we haven't been proactive as much as we could in relation to the fact that so many of our products have got so many things to talk about, but we're not very good at getting the word out there. It's something that we're working on. Retail has changed so much, and it's changing so quickly that it's sometimes hard to, when you're focusing on, when your product focuses all on the product, then it means you drop the ball maybe, or don't spend enough on other areas. But it's something that we know we need to do more of.
Yeah, but I I think that it I'm on the other side here on the line, because I started a podcast with the idea that because I love podcasting and I love the idea of having a long form conversation, especially with designers. And as I told you, when I started, I was looking around of the objects I liked, and I thought, okay, this object I liked, I want to know who made it, and I want to find out who that is and talk to them. But I think, for example, in and I was thinking also that to monetize a podcast, I don't want to make the listeners pay me or beg them for some sort of give me money to keep carry on with the podcast. But I was thinking maybe sponsorship will be in the future an idea. And I was thinking also that I want to go to the companies that I want to promote eventually, because I think that it's also important who are you promoting, not only what, because, as you said, a lot of companies are just up there because they have maybe invested in more marketing, or they have a cheap product that people are giving a lot of stars or hearts or reviews or whatever.
But I think people are genuine now, aren't they? They want the truth. Small is beautiful. If you can get behind the skin of a company and really understand who the people are and what they do and why they're passionate about it, in the same way, your listeners are no different to our customers. So if you build up a loyal following of listeners because they know that you're not being tainted or directed by money, you're going to win. People will want to keep listening to your podcast because they know that it's genuine and true. So it might take longer to get there, if that makes sense, but I think you will have more genuine engagement and better followers as a result.
I think that truth is relative, because what is truth for you might not be truth for me, or truth for some of the listeners. I think that also some people might think, okay, they're just trying to overprice a product just to earn more money, and it's totally not worth it. Or some people will think, oh no, I'm thinking that I need that quality, and that's even a low price. So I think that truth is always relative. But what I'm trying to do, and it's to look more in the deep of the people behind each product, because so you can have more than the 5 minutes commercial, or than the 2 seconds scrolling through your Instagram feed, so that who's standing behind that company, what was their path, how they do their process, because we don't get to do that anymore, to know that anymore that well as maybe before, because you would have more maybe hand makers and makers in general here in Europe, or you'll learn just more about it.
But I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think the market is polarizing. I think technology always does this. If you look at anything, so going forward, take the car industry, for example, when self-driving cars come into play, you're either going to have the cheapest cars or you're going to have the best car, the highest luxury, but there'll be no room for anything in the middle. And I think people as consumers are going that way as well. There are some people who want to know everything about the company and the products they buy and the people and the story and the ethics and the sustainability. And then there are some people who just care about price and they do not care about the company or the brand or anything like that. I love it when I don't know if you've been to Japan, but you get enthusiasts in Japan who might like, say, who might be a Porsche enthusiast, and you find that they've got a Porsche and they've restored that Porsche, an old Porsche, and made it into a condition which is better than it ever was when it rolled off the factory production line even. And they'll know more about that Porsche than anyone else. And I love that sort of passion for products and people really caring about the things that they own and wanting to know about every product that they have. I think there's a good expression, isn't it? But you don't own products; products own you. And going forward, I hope people are more ethical, are more sustainable, but they are conscious about every product they decide to buy and every product will have to have a function and a reason and a justification for them buying it and for them owning it and wanting to own it.
Yeah, I think that also in the last few years, there is, of course, those genuinely passionate people, which you mentioned. There are also, for example, I have also a friend which is very much into old timers, old cars, and he knows everything about them and how them work, and he restores them with his dad. But there are also a lot of people which I think are more focused on the status. For example, I'm noticing that sometimes myself that, for example, I don't own a car because I don't want a certain car. For example, I would like to have, I don't want to have any car. I want to have a certain car. For example, I would love to have a Tesla. And so if I don't really need a car and I cannot have that car yet, then I just won't buy a car, because I think that the younger generations has a different way of consuming. Maybe we're not that much, I don't know. I feel that it's not that much about having something, but it's about what you have and the status you get maybe through it.
I think you're right, but I think it's interesting that where does that divide come in terms of it's amazing. I always find what people will pay for a brand name. So just to give you an example, 2 weeks ago we did we sold some of our lunch boxes to, I won't say the name because I have to get I have to get permission for them to talk about it, but they're a very famous Italian fashion brand, one of the top Italian fashion brands, and they put their logo on our products. And a product which would normally be selling in the shops for £30, they are selling in the shops for £80+. And they sold out within 2 days. And this is a co-branded item, so it has our logo on the product, but they then also put their logo on the product. And I just find it amazing that, there's people out there who will, I'm obviously grateful, but it's because they sold well, but I find it amazing, isn't it, that by putting their logo on our product, it somehow becomes so much more desirable.
Yeah, I think that's what I said. It's about status. For example, I've noticed that with a new gadget that a lot of us are now introducing to their everyday life and their outfit, which is the masks. Because I've seen that a lot of the leading fashion design brands have created their own mask with their, their logo. And for example, if you can buy a mask for, I don't know, here in Germany, they're usually, depending if it's reusable, it's around €5, or maybe, I don't know how it's in the UK. And then you see those masks for €20 or €30, which is simply a mask with a logo on it. So
I guess it's no different to watch brands, which have been doing it for hundreds of years, isn't it? You can buy a watch. When Swatch first came out, I think the Swiss industry were petrified, weren't they? The sort of a high-end watch brands going, well, someone's just done a watch which does exactly what it's meant to do, tell the time accurately, and you can buy it very cheaply. But the truth is, it hasn't. The high-end watch brands of doing even better now, because people go, it's not. We all have mobile phones which have got the time on the mobile phone, but people still buy expensive watches, wristwatches.
I think that the traditional wristwatch killer will be the smartwatch, but that's a whole another world. I was wondering, because you are based in the UK and you are now a 20-year-old company. How did the last events in the last few years have affected your business? For example, if Brexit has affected it somehow, if the pandemic has affected it somehow. I was thinking that I've heard something last year. The sales of reusable bottles exploded because of Greta Thunberg. If you have noticed that about your product too.
Well, to take each aspect of that. So Brexit, yes, is a concern. Our biggest market is Germany and France. UK is definitely not our biggest market, and it has declined. The UK economy and retail market has very much declined since COVID. So Brexit is a concern, so we are basically starting we have to find a way to make it work, because a lot of our shops in France we deal with directly, and because of import duty and restrictions, we won't have that market unless we basically set up a European company. So we have to set up a European company, have a European warehouse, and that's the way we will manage that. So that will be an issue, but it's not going to affect our business. So we can manage that. COVID, I think the whole world sort of went into lockdown in terms of retail for a bit, and we sell on-the-go products. And if you're not on the go, then there's not a great demand. But bizarrely now, there's a huge demand. It's exploded, and it's picking up rapidly, because I think as people go back to work, they want to, there's some fears about, going to cafes, and there's also the growing aspect of people being more aware sustainably and health-wise. So in the past, as you said, Greta sort of highlighted the aspect of taking your own water with you and having a water bottle. We're seeing that lunchboxes are potentially the next water bottle. People are going to take their food with them. So it's definitely a growing area.
Yeah, definitely. Did you already pick, for example, a country to which you could base your European company? I think that there is a topic about Ireland, because Ireland it's similar to the UK and it's still in the EU. Or do you know, or you don't have any idea yet, or you cannot talk about it?
No, I can. It's going to be based in Belgium. It's partly down to warehousing and logistics and ease of access. But we, although we're an English company, we have lots of different nationalities in our business. We have lots of different languages that we can speak, and French is. We have lots of French speakers in our company, so we picked Belgium, and France is our biggest market. So Belgium was a good sort of fit in the middle.
But how many people are actually your core office in London where you're staying?
15 people.
15 people.
Yeah.
And how much of an expert are you in the different fields? So are you mainly, because I've noticed that shift, or I've heard about that shift from many entrepreneurs, that the problem with entrepreneurship is that you go into doing whatever you love the most, and then you end up being after a while more the manager of the process than the actual designer. Do you manage to balance to be with heads on, and then decentralize the other tasks which are concerned with sailings and marketing and so on?
I think the secret to a good entrepreneur, and I'm definitely not an example, because we're not a big company yet. We are growing very quickly. We've grown very quickly in the last 2-3 years, and part of that is down to the fact that we brought in a fantastic managing director, and he had lots of experience in our category, running a sort of £60 million business. So he's from a bigger company with much more experience. And he's been fantastic at sort of organizing our company. And I think as an entrepreneur, I have lots of ideas. So I could be doing something. I'm not very good at staying focused. I'm good at the idea side, but I'm very, very bad at so many other parts of a business, and I shouldn't be allowed anywhere near them. And so, I'm not well organized. As you can attest by my delay in replying to your email originally, and booking this in, I'm badly organized. I think it's probably a little bit down to as I said, your brain becomes good at one thing, but it pulls something away from somewhere else. Maybe I was better organized when I was younger, but we've set the business up so that it allows me to spend my time doing what I'm good at. And the success of a business is all down to your team. I play one aspect in relation to the idea side, but I have a fantastic design manager who's brilliant at running the project. So I'm feeding ideas to him, he's shaping the ideas. I have a great sales team, and they're fantastic at that side of it. Our managing director is good at the overall aspect of the company in terms of making sure everyone is very clear about what they're doing, why they're doing it, where we're going, how the company's doing. We have a brilliant finance director who keeps the company's health in check in relation to our cash flow and things like that. We have got a good office manager who keeps everyone organised. There's no part of the company which isn't important, especially when it's a small company. I do get pulled in lots of different areas at the moment. Like today, I've been on a photo shoot for the last 5 days, or the last 5 working days, and we're doing a recipe book for lunchboxes. And is that the best use of my time because it's my company? Maybe not, but I can do it, and doesn't mean and because we're a small company, I do have to sometimes go into bits and pieces of jobs where someone else might be doing it, but I quite enjoy it, and I think I add something to the process. But I have to be very careful not to try and get involved in things which actually I'm not the best person to be doing it.
Yeah, I think, and then you have to find the people that you trust. But are you? So you're still the single owner of your company. Your company is not like published.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's my company. I think delegation is obviously key, but one of the biggest things we've done, which the managing director has implemented, is creating a brand guidelines. So we've created an internal document which sets out what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we do it, and it covers so much. It's not just graphics, it's photography, it's tone of voice, philosophy, mission statement. It's quite a big document now, but it basically, if you're not sure how you should be doing something, how a salesperson should be approaching a retailer, what their tone of voice is, how they communicate it, how they market a product. This is like a Bible that you can then refer to, and it makes it so much easier for people it makes it easier to delegate, because you can go, if someone says, how do I do it? You just go, well, refer to the brand guidelines, because that will tell you.
Yeah, I know a lot about this process because my girlfriend, she's in the brand strategy business. So, for example, she has also helped me figure this out with the podcast, because I started just trying out, and then she gave me some advices, and we did these little workshops where I figure out my why, my how, and my what.
The Simon Sinek TED talk is always something I always keep going back to. Yeah, you need to know your why.
I've read his book, and I think I've in the beginning I did solo podcast where I was giving these 15-minute advices for young designers, and I did a podcast about how to boost your presentation skills, and I was thinking that once you know about this why, how, and what, you can think through your process and keep taking notes, and then when you need to go to present your design or your idea or your keynote, you will have the presentation the design will talk itself, because you can go through these points.
I think it's interesting with design. It's I remember at university as a design student, you have to stand up in front of your peers and present your design. Why is it good? Why have you done what you've done? And that gives you great sort of confidence. I think if designers can't talk about their own designs, then there's not much hope. So I can I've got no problems with. I don't think I'm not a salesperson, but I can definitely tell you about every single detail on every single product as to why we chose to do it the way we did. I do quite a lot of I have quite a lot of involvement with universities where I'm talking to design students, and I enjoy. That's just great for me, because designers are passionate about design, and you're talking to people who appreciate what you're doing. Hopefully, it's not to say that I'm probably quite boring on it. So.
No, I think I could notice that, because I was also very, very excited that you responded in a very positive way to my invitation. And go back to your sort of apologize that you didn't answer to my email very quickly. I also didn't want also to bother you because I don't know how it's the daily program of each person, and now we're in summer and a lot of people are on holiday, or you mentioned you have a family, kids, so I'm totally understanding. I was and it's for the people who don't know, we are recording on a weekday, so it's after a work day. So I was very enthusiastic about your positive response. I was thinking about another topic, which I was wondering, because from what you said, you are very conscious about your brand. You have created this brand strategy, brand character, brand identity. Do you also work on the, well, you're a small company, but that design is generally teamwork. And have you worked internally into your company also to develop a certain interaction between the coworkers, between the teammates? Because the last few years I've got in touch also with other books about leadership. For example, I can mention you if you're interested in a topic, you can read, for example, Extreme Ownership. It's a book written from this former Navy SEAL called Jocko Willing, where he explains he was leading the Navy SEALs in Iraq in the worst battle, the Battle of Ramadi, and he explains how you lead people in super chaotic environment to accomplish something very difficult in a very chaotic and dangerous process, and how you create this camaraderie and this taking care of each other, let's say. Do you have also some way of leading, which he says also talks about decentralized command, what we were talking about, delegating, or how that side of the job looks like?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is making sure that people feel ownership for the projects that they're working on. So it's not like we're all, there's only 3 designers and myself, and we don't all work on the same products. So what we'll do is we'll split the products off, and so someone will have 3 products, another person will have another 3 products, and so they take ownership. But what is nice is we do have brainstorming days together where we sit in a room, close the door, and we throw ideas around, and anyone can suggest anything. And I might have an initial idea, but it doesn't mean that someone in the team has a better idea. And I think the skill, I'm not always good at it. The skill is basically being able to remove your pride and say and recognize when someone has a better idea than yours, and it's trying to sort of weave your way through it. And I think in terms of leadership as designers, the nicest thing is being able to see a concept go from start to finish, and see people enjoy it when they're using that product. There's nothing better. If I was on the underground on the train in London today, and I saw someone with our bottle, and I went up to them and said, I designed that. The truth is I might have designed it, but I probably had one or two of the other designers who had input on it. But I still feel ownership for it. But I think in terms of leadership, I like people to be. I don't like to micromanage. I'm not very. As I said, I'm not organized, so I'm not good at keeping track on. What have you done today? What are you doing this hour? I like people to manage their own time.
Yeah, I think it's a very good approach. And what you said, it's true, because for example, I feel ownership about I'm very young in my field. I'm just professional since I think now it's going to be 4.5 years, and I've designed 2 buildings which are actually realized, but they're built and they're there.
Fantastic.
And of course, I've done that with a lot of people working on it, but I feel the ownership because I know the moments when I was drawing on my computer, different details, the difficulties we had, ideas we killed, and then you go there and you see it standing, and you see the people working inside there being happy.
I think it's amazing, isn't it? I think architecture must be amazing because you're seeing, you can walk past your projects, in later life and see how it's aged and how people are loving using it. I mean, I think that the division between architecture, product design, car design, ceramics, fashion design, or whatever it is, it's all very, very similar, isn't it? I mean, I've moved house, I think, 6 times in the last 20 years because I like doing up houses and changing them and hopefully making them better. I'm also a frustrated artist. I love to paint. One day I'd love to be a painter. But I think the division between, we express ourselves by creating things.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what I wanted to create. I think we have this common ground of willing to make a better product for the people who use that product or that building. And I wanted to talk to other creatives from other field where I know less, to understand how they do their process, how they started, how they think. For example, in the field of architecture, it's you have a big responsibility because a part of build, as you say, we build things which uses resources when our resources are limited. But also, for example, in the case of a building, you are building not only from the people inside, but also for the people outside. Because if you have an ugly building in front of your house, you're also unhappy. So here in Germany, they are in the university. There were a lot of people with these stickers on their laptops, which I really love this sentence, which says, "Architecture is where you are," because it's really true. Wherever you are into architecture. And this bunch of small ideas and sometimes they are not even affecting the costs, but they're very small. The good design is just these small tweaks that makes the final product better. But I want to ask you, like, maybe I don't want to take a lot of your time because, as you said, it's the week, and I want to take you away from your evening time. But I was wondering, when you started, it's now 20 years ago, has changed a lot probably, but how did you start? What was the investment you needed to put in? I mean, I don't need to know exact numbers, or I'm just curious, how was the setup? Did you need some backup from your family, or how did it work, the beginning of your adventure?
Yeah, so we left university and we both worked for a year. I worked for a designer called Julian Brown, who was a kind of very well-known designer. It was just me and him, but we both saved our money that year with the understanding that we would start after a year of working in industry. And then we rented a flat, and we were working out of that, and so we had no office overhead. As we were a consultancy, that was pretty easy. So we got a job in, and we got paid for that job, and we kind of saved up that money. But when we first started producing our products, we were making them in batches of 200, and we were assembling them ourselves. We were delivering them by hand to shops. So we didn't need any high investments at the beginning. So we have it's been built up organically without any crowdfunding or family investment. Having said that, my parents have been very kind in the sense of I had the knowledge that if it didn't work out, I'm not going to be homeless, if that makes sense. So I have 3 older brothers, and we all have our own businesses. So my oldest brother makes mattresses and beds. He has he used to have 30 shops, and is a very successful mattress and bed retailer. His business is now online. And my 2 other brothers have they just sold their business actually, but they have the UK's largest childcare business. So they do corporate childcare, so nurses and nannies and creches and nurseries. And so I think the biggest advantage I've had is seeing what my father had his own business. I think he's always encouraged us to have our own business. And he's always said, don't worry if it doesn't work out. So he's removed that pressure. And I think it's not always the case, but with a lot of people who have their own business, you often find that they started their business quite early. when they didn't have the pressures of, looking after having children and mortgages and these sort of things. And if you start a business early, there's less pressure on you.
Yeah, of course, you need to be bold when you're younger. And just to know, when did the switch happen to you started with the assembling, and how did the switch turn with for example, manufacturing in China? How did you find the factories?
I think we're lucky because of timing in the sense, but we did the first 2 years as a consultancy, and if I'm being absolutely honest, we weren't very good at it. We were fine at the design side, but we weren't very good at getting the clients in. Most consultancies start by you working for a consultancy and you have a great relationship with a company that uses that consultancy, and then you leave and you take that client with you. We started from scratch, so we had to get clients in. And when we did this lighting project for this company, and we, out of the back of that, we ended up producing our own products. It was more of a necessity because, we'd been doing this for 2 years. We were saving our money, but we weren't earning very much. And it was a bit like, this is either going to, we're going to fail at this and we can't continue this forever. So luckily the lighting worked. So it was a make or break situation. And then it was 2 years later where at that time you could still manufacture in Europe, but it was changing very rapidly. And we went to Taiwan. We were told about a factory that could make great products, and that's when we did our first product from Taiwan, where if we tried to make that product in Europe, it would have been 30% more expensive than making it in Taiwan. So it was a cost and investment, a bit of a risk going to Taiwan, but then we felt that the product would have better chance. And it happened very quickly then, whereas now certain products, if you were trying to make it in Europe, it would be 100% more than making it in Asia.
And do you need to travel a lot of times personally to the places where they produce your products, or you don't do that often?
No, I do. I go to China twice a year. We have trade shows in America, in Europe, and in France and Germany, and I've done trade shows in Australia, Japan, Russia, all over the world. Visiting the factories is brilliant because part of the design process is understanding what does the person on the assembly line have to do to assemble your product. There's a lot of aspects of design which you don't see. So if you design a product which is nice for the person who's making it to make, in other words, it's not going to be difficult for them to do, it's going to end up being a better product. And you learn so much when you go to the factory. They might say, well, actually, if we did it like this, it would just be better quality, or it might be cheaper, or it's going to last longer, or it's more environmental. And so you need to go to the factory to make it. And we're very conscious, obviously, of every time we fly. It's a big carbon footprint. So we try and do it sort of once or twice a year only, and do as much as we can. Go for 2 weeks at a time when we go.
Well, I think that this year the traveling around the world, it won't be that.
No, it's all stopped, hasn't it? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as a result of that. I mean, with things like Skype and Zoom and Microsoft Teams, it's all getting easier, I think. But there's certain things that you can only achieve when you're in a room with someone discussing it, holding it together, and so it's a challenge.
Well, yeah, in the design field, it's a very big challenge to go only through Skype and in Teams or Zoom or whatever. But how about, you said that, because you mentioned that a lot of times now, that you go to a lot of trade shows. That's also something that has stopped now. So will there be some alternative like virtual events, or?
I don't think it works. If people won't be prepared to be online for a whole day looking at their screen, going through different products. It's just, you can't do it. Whereas you can walk a trade fair stand and let your eyes look at products and pick them up and see how they feel in your hand. So, yeah, I mean, trade shows aren't going to happen, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that portrays out. We need to get better at our digital marketing. It's definitely going to have an impact. We, maybe we just have to send more product samples to our key retailers and say, look, here's a product. What do you like it? And if you don't like it, send it back to us. But if you like it, then keep it and sell it and order some more.
Yeah, maybe that will be an option. This is how, for example, works with materials for the buildings. You send us a sample and then we decide if it's a suitable material or not. I was wondering, what is your biggest, usually when everything is normal, when everything is going to be back to normal, what is the biggest trade show you take part in Germany, or do you take part in any trade shows in Germany?
Yeah, in Germany it's Ambiente, so in February, and that's our in Frankfurt. That's our biggest trade show. We do Maison et Objet in Paris, and then we do a big show in Chicago, which is the big American show. And in the UK, we do one in London, but it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know. The UK retail market just is not the same as Germany and France in terms of our category. I think Europe is ahead compared to England in relation to sustainability.
That's cool. I wanted to hear that you will come to a show in Frankfurt. So
where are you based?
I'm based exactly in Frankfurt, and I was thinking, because we have this big trade center, that you might be coming here. So
well, it'd be good to meet and have a beer. We found some very good restaurants in Frankfurt.
Of course, I'll be happy to guide you to some other more local insider restaurants also.
I'm trying to remember. We love. We always go to this very, very traditional German house restaurant where you get the blood sausage and it's very good. It's a tradition. Every year we have to go there.
I think it's called. I know it's very popular. It's called Ache. And it's in the old part of the city called Sachsenhausen. And I know that it's very popular during the trade fairs because it has a very high resume on TripAdvisor.
No, it's not that one. There's another one. No, there's another one, and it's not the old town. It's further east. It's not on the outskirts, but it's further away from the old town, and it's down an alley, and just super, super traditional. But it's not the I know the well-known one as well, and the famous steak on the stone place, and yeah.
I wish everything will be up again, and then there will be trade shows, and then you will be coming back to Frankfurt. I want to give you the chance to tell the listeners which have listened to our show where they can find more about you and Black+Blum and your products.
Well, likewise, I will. We send a mailing out to our customers, and I will. Once you've sent me the link to this, I will include it so people can hear it.
Sure. So yeah, well, I'll include in the description the links to the Instagram of your company, YouTube, Facebook, I see, and then the website. And I don't know, people, wherever you're based, you can go on Amazon, look on Black+Blum, and you'll find amazing products. As I said, I love my products, and it's funny because I said many times during the intro of the podcast that people can listen to the podcast on the way to work. I now tell them, okay, take also some nice design piece of Black+Blum on the way to work, maybe your lunchbox or your bottle, and listen to the podcast while going there.
Available from Manufactum. So yeah, and yeah, good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.
Very good. Very good to talk to you.
Soon. Yeah.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, guys, thank you for joining me, and thank you for listening to the interview. And I hope you enjoyed to know about product design and more about Black+Blum and how they make things happen. And again, follow them on Instagram, buy some of the stuff if you like them. They were not sponsors of the podcast. I just really enjoyed their products, and I wanted to talk to some product designer, which was super great from Dan to accepting my invitation. I'm very humble from that. And again, if you like the show and if you like the idea behind it, keep following the pages, which are at TCI Podcast on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, The Creative Insider. And if you like it that much, you can even share it with your friends and say, hey, dude, I'm listening to this podcast, kind of cool. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, and you'll join me next week when we'll have another creative mind to talk on the show. Thank you. Bye.
Just like that. Just like that.